O'clock, we'll call our regular council meeting of December the 10th, 2024 to order. This is our last council meeting for 2024. I'd like to wish a very Merry Christmas and a happy and prosperous New Year to all council, staff, visitors, and residents of Central York. Motion of councilors in attendance.
Yes.
Thank you. Could I have approval for the agenda, please?
I so moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Forbes, do I have a seconder?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Brownlow. Any questions on the agenda? If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Sorry, in the contrary amended. Not, motion carried. Declaration of conflicts of interest this evening. Do we have any to declare? Hearing none. Good. We have delegates this evening. We have Ragolov Parit, planner for the Capital Region Service Commission. We asked you and Melinda if you'd like to come up. And we have Melinda Parks, senior planner. It's going to go over pieces of the rural plan. Would you prefer questions as you go or when you're finished?
I think up to the council, but we're okay with either.
Either? Okay. So if you're okay with either, we'll probably field them as they come. Okay. All yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome to Central York. Thanks for being here.
Is there like a sensor? Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Raghav Parik. I am a planner with the Capital Region Service Commission. Today, I will be providing a brief overview of the process of developing the new rural plan for the Central York rural community. What is the rural plan? A rural plan is a comprehensive land use document that guides the municipality and its residents in future development. It aims to define and enhance the community characters, protect the environment, and minimize conflicting land uses. Currently, Central York rural community has 4 different rural plans in effect. Central York County Rural Plan, Estes Bridge Rural Plan, Keswick Ridge Rural Plan, and the Douglas Rural Plan. These individual plans would be consolidated into a single rural plan that would serve the entire Central York rural community. It is important to note that a rural plan cannot eliminate existing land uses, nor contradict or lessen the provisions of the existing regulations. The 3 main components that direct the land use development within the rural plan are objectives, policies and proposals, and general and zoning provisions. These elements collectively ensure a cohesive and sustainable approach to managing the community's growth and development. Here is the composition of the new boundary of Central York rural community, showing its intersection with the current rural plans in effect. The 4 existing plans will merge into a single comprehensive plan. However, updates to provincial regulations may lead to certain adjustment in the new plans. One key update will be the integration of statements of public interest, a provincial regulation adopted last year. Additionally, we will eliminate any references to any repealed regulations to ensure the plan is fully aligned with the current standards. Moving on, objectives. Objectives includes the goals for the community, a vision for where the community would like to see itself in the future, and the effect the community wants the rural plan to have. Policies and proposals. Policy states what the community wants to do for itself. They also guide the municipality in management of land uses. Proposals on the other side back up a policy. They offer insights into potential actions or projects that may make the policy a reality. I have an example of what a policy is and a proposal is on the presentation. It is a policy to foster institutional uses and community facilities that provide meeting and gathering space for residents. However, it is proposed that institutional land uses be directed to appropriate locations that conveniently meet the needs. So a policy basically states what the rural plan is looking into, and a proposal would back up that policy. General and zoning provisions. Provisions are the tools for implementations and enforcement. They are limitation, conditions, or stipulation. General provisions, a provision is a limitation, condition, or standard that is not limited to any specific zone. For example, parking standards that would apply to all zoning regulations, or signage, However, a zoning provision describes the specific zones that may be established for the planning area. So a residential zone would have certain uses compared to a commercial or an industrial zone. The planning staff conducts a thorough review of the existing plans, critically evaluating what is effective, what needs improvement, and what gaps exist. The comprehensive analysis enables the staff to develop a more robust and sustainable rural plan, fostering the community growth and development. The part for the engagement. The rural plan development also includes public engagement. The goal is to be transparent with the community and provide all necessary information. Some of the options, but not limited to, of such public engagement is through community surveys, newsletters, open houses, public hearing, which is also a requirement towards the end of the rural plan drafting process. The process of developing a rural plan involves reviewing the existing plans, adhering to legislation, working with the public, and consulting with local and provincial governments. Process task. Developing a rural plan involves 3 key phases. The first is to create a background report for the community. The second is drafting the rural plan, and the third is creating a zoning map for the area. The council forms a working group that collaborates with the planning staff from CYRC to develop the plan. Once the draft is created, public engagement sessions are conducted to allow community members to review the draft, voice their concerns, and share insights. After incorporating community feedback, the draft is reviewed by various provincial departments, and upon receiving their approval, the rural plan is registered and then adopted. Roughly, the whole process takes up to 15 to 18 months, sometimes 12 months. However, it depends how frequently the working group meets and what are the changes that are required by the community and the smoothness of the process in general. Next slide, please. So here's a draft project timeline for the rural plan drafting process for the Central York rural community. We have divided it into 2 phases. The first phase focuses on recruiting members for the working group and conducting necessary meetings to discuss these policies and proposals of the current rural plan and how to make them better or make changes for the newer rural plan. The second phase involves drafting the rural plan, conducting reviews, holding public engagement sessions, and then consulting with GMB. The overall timeline spans about 15 months into the current project timeline with built-in buffer time to accommodate any major changes that may arise at any point during the drafting period. So this was a brief presentation on what the rural plan is and what would be the development process, and if there are questions, we'll be happy to answer.
The working group,
Yes.
what does that consist of? Is that made up from this council? Or does council decide the working group, or your people, or? So
the council usually forms the working group. It is not entirely formed of council members, but it's usually 30%, 40% council members and more representation from the community members.
But it will come from here?
It will be.
Okay. The plans that we have, portions of Estes Bridge, Douglas, Keswick Ridge, are any of those similar now?
Similar action.
Like, do they have the same rural plan?
They probably wouldn't. I believe the Estes Bridge plan is the newest one and probably the most different. I know Douglas, I think, only has maybe 3 zones, so they would also be different, but you only have a very small part of Douglas.
Most of Douglas went to the city.
Yeah, there's like a little, if you look at the map on it, there's little slivers of it. I would guess Central York and Keswick Ridge would probably be the most similar of all the plans that there are. And then there's a chunk just along the side that doesn't have any planning at all.
But Central York has no plan, right?
Central York does not. Well, Central York Rural Community does not have one plan for themselves. There's a Central York Rural Plan that is much bigger than this municipality. And it was created for the local service district. I'm not sure exactly what the date was there, but it's been in effect for quite a while.
Like before 2023?
Oh yes, well before. It's called the Central York Rural Plan, but it had nothing to do with the municipality. It was just named for the parish.
Okay, that's what's confusing me.
Yeah.
Okay. So, can you tell me a little bit of, you said Estes Bridge is the newest, and it probably has the most up-to-date and the most in it. But at the end of the day, we're gonna have a Central York Rural Plan, which will encompass all the ones that have a plan now,
It will encompass the entire community, even the
Yes.
parts that don't have a plan
Yes.
right now yet.
plus the ones that do have a plan.
Yeah, it'll be one plan for the entire
Be
community.
one plan. So do you anticipate that, will we deviate from what Central York plan now was before 2023? Will it be similar to that, or will it kind of compare to the Estes Bridge or the Keswick Bridge or Douglas? Do you know any of that, which way that would kind of?
The way we've been going through doing the plan updates so far is we kind of take all of the policies and proposals and things from all of the 4 different plans, write them out, give them to the working group, and then kind of go through everything and say what's working, what's not working, what do you like, what do you not like, what are issues that have been coming up that are not addressed here, and getting feedback from the group made up of the council and the public to get an idea of what they like and what they want to see going forward. So it would be kind of an amalgam of everything that exists, plus anything that isn't working, you know, trying to fix that.
Okay. Welcome, Lonnie Forbes.
Gee, it's not even 20 days yet. They let you on early.
Would you like to join them at the table, or?
I'm okay. You got any questions? I'm happy to answer them.
Good. Okay, questions? Councilor Edwards?
That map, the last page of the parish and the LSC boundaries and the rural plat boundaries, that is the best map I've ever seen that shows why. It is, I mean, it's so irregular, and that's why you see, you know, the portion of Queensbury parish, but they don't say parish. And then they say portion of something else. But when you see that jagged line, it brings everything into perspective, for me anyway.
Yeah, no, I purposely left that last page out because I wanted to talk about
Oh.
the population study that we did, and I think that we had a chat on email that the population is a bit different compared to what the problems I mentioned. And if we can have that map, the last slide. I think it's the last one. Yeah, this one. So as for the population study, as you were aware, Statistics Canada does collect information for the census. So Statistics Canada currently deals with the parish and LSD boundaries. So on the left that you can see is the parish and LSD boundaries. Now we have portion of Douglas, we have portion of Brighton, portion of Queensbury, but we cannot distinguish what population or what number of people live inside the newer boundaries compared to the entire parish. So that was the reason that you would see 10,000 people in the report, but realistically there are only 7,000 people in the community. So we at this point cannot bifurcate the number of people. That's why we're taking percentages in the study. So it does not, but the trends remain the same. The population numbers go up and down. So most of the charts in the background report would be percentages compared to the number of people living there. But for the rural plan, it's different. Even though the Douglas parish is a large portion, the Douglas rural plan only covers a small section at the bottom right. So that is the biggest confusion that people have for rural plans compared to the data that's available online. So we're trying to have just one single rural plan for the entire community, and hopefully moving forward we'll see Statistics Canada following the same boundaries for their census.
Okay. Are we all confused, or any questions, or? I know, like, a fair bit of this is over my head. Like, I'll be the first to admit that. Like, it's kind of overwhelming.
And we are always available to answer any questions that you might have about it at any point. We wanted to take, I think on Reg Hub's timeline, kind of we're starting January is when we're looking to start, but we wanted to have this meeting tonight to kind of go over the basics of what we're looking to do, what we're looking to achieve, and also mention that working group we've had in the past, we've done, kind of started with an open house and just had the public show up and sign up to be on that working group. That sometimes works, but a lot of the time you get 7 people who sign up and 1, if that, who show up. So we've had a lot of luck recently with having, 2 or 3 council members on it, and then having council come up with interested members in the community from kind of all over the different wards, the different areas, with different experiences that they know would be interested in showing up for committee meetings kind of once a month, and then we'd set all that up in January, or probably towards late January, so it's a little bit of lead time.
So it'd be an ad hoc committee. Okay. This is what we were supposed to have done in the end of 2024, was it, or?
2028, we're still on track.
Okay, I thought we were up for 2024.
I do have a question.
Yes.
What are you gonna call the Central York Rural Plan after there's a Central York Rural Plan?
Well, so you would be the Central York Rural Community Rural Plan, and I believe this one is this,
Central York County Rule Plan.
Okay.
yeah, and eventually all
The abbreviation's still gonna be the same.
eventually, so when we put in this new plan, we will repeal the portions of all the old plans that are within your boundaries. The 2028 date is all, everyone needs to be planned by 2028, so at that point, the other parts of the plans that are outside your boundaries will also be repealed with a new plan for the unincorporated areas or NASH block, whichever one is.
Whatever falls in.
But I believe the Douglas plan it's 20 years old now. Is that true? Like it's
Do you have them?
up to the date?
It probably is fairly old, yeah. I think the Estes Bridge one is the only new one in the group.
And the only populated area we have that is Perry's Mill, just along the river.
Yeah, it's
It's the little sliver on 105.
in the rock quarter.
And the rock quarry.
Yeah, Douglas plan
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
registered in 2004, so yeah, 20 years.
And that would be interesting too, because I was reading the background, and the rock quarry does not necessarily fit within the Estes Bridge Road.
No, the rock quarry is not in Estes
No,
Bridge.
in the wording of it, it's not compatible.
But the rock quarry was in the old LSD of Douglas.
I know, it's just gonna be an interesting process.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's one that we are aware of, a friction point, let's call it, the quarry. But that's kind of why we want the public and the council on the working group to really let us know that local insight of other friction points or other things that are happening that we should be aware of and be, planning for the future for.
So in this rural plan, we should have, even in, like when we're going through it, will you set out, or will we indicate, like there's certain commercial, there's certain industrial, there's certain gravel pits around, there's certain rock quarries around, or?
Yeah, so part of our process is doing a windshield survey that comes before we really get into the zoning. So we'll just drive around up and down all the streets, all the lanes, see what is in existence. We take a GPS with us and we mark it all down and we map it. And then, like I have said earlier, we can't make anything not exist. Anything that's on the ground that is legal now, we can't get rid of it, we can't legislate it away. But we can be aware of it, and then we can either zone for traditional uses. So if this section of land has always been residential or commercial, we can zone for that, allow it, or if there's things that don't make sense, we can zone them in a way that makes sense. It can't get rid of them. They still can operate. They're legal non-conforming at that point, but if they cease to operate, then that use is no longer permitted, so.
So if there's something operating commercial at the moment, you don't really get into it and force that or whatever, or make them become commercial? It's just if they cease operation, then no one can go in and run commercial out of there until it's approved or rezoned, or?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how it ends up zoned, but yeah, if there was a commercial use that was somewhere that shouldn't have a commercial use for environmental reasons or social reasons or whichever, we zone it to match the surrounding area, and that doesn't allow the commercial. We can't get rid of them, they can keep going, they have legal non-conforming rights, which is legislated under the Community Planning Act, but but if they cease to operate for a period of 10 months or longer, or it was destroyed in some way more than 50%, then they have to meet current standards.
What's classified as operate?
That is.
Sometimes places will stop working out of a quarry for a number of months due to the price of rock or for different reasons, and someone might be watching a calendar.
Yeah, well, that's, yeah, and if they do cease to operate for 10 months, it can be an application to the FRAC to restart after the 10 months, and then
So they'd be
it depends.
legal non-conforming if the land was rezoned for where they were and around them to be not for any new quarries, they could be legal non-conforming until they shut themselves down or.
I can give you an old example of that. Warren Maritime Quarry, that is up towards McLeod Hill. When you look at that, the planners of the day purposely zoned it so that it was not able to continue as a quarry. Their fear at that time was that they would excavate enough material that they would hit the water vein and drain the water for that area. So they purposely zoned it so it couldn't be that. There are court cases, if you wanna call them that, around quarries and their time limits and that sort of thing. When Melinda and Raghav talk about non-conforming uses, it's largely your garage, your bakery, those types of uses. If you folks know where there's a business or a rock quarry or gravel pit that they're not gonna see or they're not going to find, then you really should, when they generate a map and start it out, well, there's this here and there's that there, that's very helpful to me.
Yeah, we haven't spoke much around the table about anyone's opinions on any quarries at this point. It's just, it's gonna be a public issue. I notice it's a public forum that's gonna come with that, and that will probably boil up during that discussion.
Councillor Edwards?
Yeah. Should every gravel pit, small or large, be on this plan? I'm just thinking, I have a gravel pit, and it's on the land, and so it should be noted somewhere on the plan?
It wouldn't be in the plan
Yeah, that's what I mean.
specifically.
Yeah.
It's useful for us to know about it, but, you know, if there's things like very small gravel pits
Mhm.
in rural areas that aren't causing issue, that's a different matter than a very large commercial operation.
Right.
So knowing they exist and how many exist makes it easy, like I said, for those traditional uses of land. We don't wanna make it hard for people to do things that they've always been doing,
But it could be noted.
but it could be.
Yeah. How about cemeteries?
We usually take note of those. Again, it fits into an institutional use generally, or an accessory use to a church sometimes. So again, we're not looking to legislate those out of being, but maybe not have them in certain more.
It's just that I've been
sector areas.
involved in that, because they seem to have a hard, look, I have a cemetery and a gravel pit. But, right now, they're trying to figure out a lot of things about these cemeteries. You know, what they're on, and who owns them or who doesn't own, all this stuff about cemeteries. There's a lot of conversation now about it, so. Thank you.
Rock quarries, there's no designation for a rock quarry, is there? It's just a gravel pit?
It depends on the plan. I think the Douglas plan has a specific zone that is gravel pit
Yeah.
zone.
But not rock, like the rock quarry would fall under a gravel pit, right?
Very different type of operation.
I did read some
Yeah, there
specific wording
is-
about it in the background.
Yeah, there is a difference between a quarry and a gravel pit and.
Well, we know that,
Yeah,
but is it,
it'll be in the definitions, and so then it'll be what's permitted under a zone will be in the definitions, and it'll be defined like blasting or non-blasting or things like that. I'm not sure specifically.
Because they can stockpile for many years and haul out stockpiles, but not actually actively be blasting.
so the difference is blasting or non-blasting?
I think that's the big one when it comes to what is in the provincial.
That's what
legislation.
differentiates. agriculture and residential is, that's usually one block, they're the same, or,
Residential sometimes is its own thing, like for very tight, subdivision of land, like
like a
just house,
subdivision.
like, 1 acre lots all
Right.
together. But we are generally very permissive towards agriculture. That's where in rural New Brunswick, people wanna have, you know, maybe chickens, maybe things like that. But it's, again, it's something that we talk about with the group, with the council. If you want hobby farms, if you want large scale agriculture, if you want backyard chickens, that's its own separate thing. What numbers of animals per size of land, all of those things will come out and be a part of it.
So if you wanted a 300 sow operation, or if you wanted a 200 cow dairy farm, then that's outside of the boundaries of residential agriculture.
Yes.
That would
I
have,
mean, that would fall under the the Livestock Operations Act of the province, and they have setbacks that just aren't, you can't meet them in a residential area. I mean, they're huge. But anything that would be below the Livestock Operations Act is kind of where we would be focusing.
and there's numbers for the Livestock Act in the province,
Yeah.
like certain numbers for pigs,
Yeah.
cattle,
Yeah, I know it's
chickens.
200 chickens. I'm not sure what it is for cow. Horses don't count as livestock, so they're their own thing that we tend to focus on. But yeah, there are numbers for, I believe, sheep, goats, cattle,
Pigs.
things like that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
For timberland, is that another classification for wood cutting operations, or does that fall into the residential agriculture as well?
Sometimes it falls under like a resource or a rural, usually not residential.
They will butt up against each other in
They-
some of our areas.
Exactly, they'll meet.
Yes.
A couple of things that I'm thinking about, when I first looked at the second or third page, and you had that the working groups are before an open house. Now, I'm thinking after what you just said, so when we're making up this rural plan, we're going to have different areas to be zoned certain ways. So you have a group of residents, and all of a sudden, there's a bunch of new zones, or zoning regulations. And this is why I was going back to the bit about having the open house after, or is this where you would present some of these zones, the regulations?
Yeah, so the working group would work primarily on policy and proposal.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the less exciting but more important part of the plan, where we really look at what the community wants for the future, how they want to grow, expand, etc. Then we would do the mapping and the provisions after that, and it's kind of a hierarchy, so everything that we do after has to relate back to the policies and proposals. But once we have that zoning map, once we have the policies and proposals in a full draft, that's when we would do the open house and bring it to probably a more informal setting with the public, just to drop in, give us your opinions, say like things that are working, not working, etc., and then take that feedback.
Good.
All good? We're all confused.
Hopefully it'll get clearer as we move through the process, but if it doesn't,
Clear as a bell.
always talk to us.
Okay, so the timeline is, you're, of course, there's a lot of holidays coming up, but you're diving into it now?
Yeah, I mean, we have already went through the process of making, like, drafting the background report.
Right.
That is done. The next step involves is the council recruiting the members for the working group. Once we have the working group ready, we can move into those meetings for discussing the policies and proposals for the plan.
So have you been up and down the roads and streets yet or not yet?
That would happen in the second phase. This is the first phase where we have the meetings. The second phase is when we draft. We also have the I would say the trips on the side.
So I am confused.
But yeah, then for the meetings, we stick to once a month meetings. So like there will be some homework, to be honest. But I will be sending some policies and proposals for the group to read before we meet, so we can have a meeting, we can discuss them. I'll be taking notes, rather than we both will be attending, we'll be taking notes, we'll go back, we'll start working on the draft on the side as well. So once we have something set up, we'll present it to the working group first. Once we have their approval, then we move on to all these public engagement and open houses.
Okay. So our mandate right now is to get a working group together.
Yes. The sooner we have the working group, the sooner we can start with the meetings.
Great. No other questions? On behalf of council, I'd like to thank you very much for coming and doing this presentation. Hopefully we can walk through it without getting too many scars.
Thank you.
I know you got a good leader there. Thanks so much. Drive careful, because it could be a bit of freezing rain.
Warm enough, not as bad as it was.
No.
Sorry.
No, that's good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we need a motion for approval of the previous meeting minutes on November 26, 2024.
I'll move.
Councilor Brownlow, second by Councilor Brewer. Any questions on the meeting minutes? Were there any errors or omissions that anyone noticed that need corrected, or all good? Hearing nothing, I guess we would. So all those in favor? Aye. Contrary, no, motion carried. Business arising from the previous meeting minutes. Do we have any? All good? Okay. We have no correspondence. Committee report. I think the committee, the EMO committee got delayed, so we'll have a report later in the new year. The committee of the whole meeting minutes for November 26th, we need a motion for that.
I'll move.
Moved by Councilor Brownlow, seconder, Councilor Brewer. Any questions on the committee of the whole meeting minutes in November 26th? All good? All those in favor? Contrary minded, any? Motion carried. And our treasury report won't happen for December, because that was due on the fourth Tuesday. Of course, that's Christmas, so we'll have the two of them in January, the second meeting of 2024. Which I guess one could be on the first council meeting, one could be on the second.
It'll be both on the second.
Both on the second Tuesday, okay. Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you. For remote water supply, the Scotts Lake Road location has been put on hold until the new year when the development can start up again. Things are taking a little longer than anticipated, but now we know the obstacles. The next location should be a little easier. Under the arena, the municipal capital warrant board hearing happened yesterday on December the 9th. There are a few conditions to be met prior to full approval of acceptance of the Keswick Arena, the transfer of ownership and the debt. We need to move towards finalizing the acquisition of the property and begin the process of the transfer of land, building, and other assets, etc. The next meeting is on January 14th, 2025. I hope all of you and your families have a very Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the Chief Administrative Officer's report. Moved by Councilor Edwards, and the seconder. Seconded by Deputy Mayor Forbes. Any questions on the report? All those.
Just a question, Duncan, when you talk about the remote water supply being moved, the project being moved to the new year, is that, are you saying in the spring when the evening is better, or
Yes.
January?
Well, as soon as we can get in there and finish it and have the well put in, whenever the weather permits that.
So it could
Probably
happen,
the roads need to be open, all
All
the weight restrictions. So it'll be May.
spring?
Well, you can now, but we don't have the tank and stuff there to
Right.
put the rock around. So we get the tank,
That's hence my question, are we looking at the spring before it resumes?
yes.
Okay.
Not much other way around it, so, yes.
Where is that on the Scotch Lake Road? Just approximately.
It's a portion of the land owned by Max Quack. So there's a trailhead that opens up, it comes up to the road on
Yes.
Scotch Lake, you know where that is?
Yes.
If you're looking at the trailhead, it's to the left, probably about 50 meters.
Okay, I noticed yesterday, I don't think they're plowing the Scotch Lake Road from the 105 anyway. Or at least they just went short distance.
It's beyond our pay scale. All those in favor of the report? Contrary-minded, if any, motion carried. I do have a slight mayor's report for this month, very little. 2024 reflection, mayor report, year-end achievements. Our own office building, we own our own office building and rent a portion of it out, which collects revenue. We annexed the 2 fire departments into the municipality in January of this year. We purchased a small portion of land adjacent to Fisher Field to hopefully expand with that field for several future events. We now have, since March, working with us, a very talented treasurer. We have leased and operated 2 boat launch sites, one on the St. John River and the other on the Keswick River. 3 year-round water resources for the fire departments are currently in the works with the completion of one by midsummer of 2025. It got delayed for completion for the fall of 2024. The acquisition of Keswick Valley Arena Complex is in its final stages. Currently finalizing ownership of a portion of property in Nevers Island that may serve as stops for kayak and canoe goers. Our municipality funds 8 different community groups with the addition of 2 new ones for 2025. We have managed these along with our regular commitments while maintaining our property tax rate with a slight reduction from 2024. This rate is possibly one of the lowest rates in the Capital Region Service Commission area. I so move my report. Do I have a seconder? Second by Councillor Drake. Any questions on my report? Yes.
Does that mean that the property tax rate is the same for all wards of Central York?
Yes.
Good, okay.
It was in 2024 also. And it will be going ahead.
Okay.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded, any? Motion carried. We'll move into new business. We'll go through the motion first and then you can do your explaining. So we need a motion to amend the motion from last meeting of number 3120324, approval of the 2025 operating budget for Central York. And in that motion, we need to approve $2.952 million and $867 for the warrant for the basic year of 2025. And we'll have our CAO walk us through these numbers.
Thank you. Sorry for the deja vu, everyone. I feel like we've done this before.
So we need a second for the motion. I moved it, seconded by Councillor Downey?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm gonna go right to the revenue sheet. There's a slight change, one change here for building permit revenue. Sorry, back up here. We had an amount of 55,000 in there. I've now bumped it up to 64,781. That shouldn't be any issue with the way things are going this year, and I don't think it's gonna change for next year. That's the only change for revenue, so your total revenue is $260,331. On your expenditure sheet, sorry. Scroll from the top. The change here, they're pretty much all the same under your general government. I didn't change anything here. Sorry. I'm gonna go right down, the liability insurance, I had it at 45, we finally received our quote, so I put it down to 42 for liability insurance.
So
something that, I had the on-site premises, expenditure at 35, put that back down to 30. We have not used that yet this year, but it's in progress. Other economic development services, I had that at 15, I put it down to 10, and if you remember, that's maybe something like a promotional video for somebody work similar to other communities around us. The other 15,000, it was at 20 under tourism, it's now down to 15. That's hopefully participating in the World PGA Tour, something along that line, and or other tourism local needs that the service commission does not look after. Administration for personnel, that was at 80 for your rec coordinator, I put that down to 60. It's gonna be later in the year by the time you find somebody, so I'm reducing that one now. Excuse me. Let me see here. Everything else is pretty much the same except for your transfers. The transfer to capital reserves now at 20,000, and I have a transfer of 72,000 going into the operating reserve. So your total expenditures proposed is $3,245,556. And you go to your budget summary. You'll see your, on the very right-hand side, excuse me, sorry, your total revenue is $260,331. Your total budget's $3,245,556. Your net budget's $2,985,225. Your conditional grant is $32,358 subtracted. Your net warrant proposed is $2,952,867. Your local tax rate would be 0.4057, so that's 40 cents, roughly, 40.5 cents. And
Less.
and altogether, these rates are still the same, which were pre-approved for your local rec groups. So your proposed rate and your unconfirmed DTI rate, if that doesn't change, your actual policing rate, your potential tax rate in this entirety for 2025 is 0.9584. That's a difference of 0.0135 cents.
Thank you.
And I didn't make any mistake on this. It's pretty accurate.
So our total tax rate is down 1.35 cents.
Yes.
But nearly 1 cent of that came from policing.
0.70 is,
Three-quarters of it
that's right.
came from the policing.
Yes.
And the reason these changed a little bit is because we had to back out the reserve, the capital reserve, and the operating reserve for the difference from the meeting before. That's why these numbers, a few of them moved around, that was explained to you, so.
I mistakenly put in the whole amount of your surplus from 2023, which was 315,000, but I was only supposed to move over 94 and change. That was my bad, sorry.
It's just a slight technicality. We've got it all fixed up. So, we've got a motion, we've got a seconder, questions on this?
Question, yeah, the tax base and the warrant, is that actuals from the province, or is that an estimate based off of projections?
Those
Those
are
are actuals, okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All good? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded, if any? Motion carried.
Motion, so I move, make a motion to move $50,000 into the operating reserve.
We have a second. Second by Councilor Reyes. Any questions on this? Yes,
What's it from?
let Duncan.
So as part of your 2024 budget, we anticipated hopefully moving 100,000 as part of the
Okay, it's
budget.
just a.
So it's just for 2024, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's just a repair.
And you, council makes these motions prior to year end every year if you have something in your budget to move forward.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. Do we have any other new business? Yes, Councilor Reyes.
Statement first, then a suggestion. I think we had some relative success with trying to work towards some boat launches that our community could use. And from my observations, I think they were used quite well by our community. I remain concerned about the barbed wire around the compound down here. And I would suggest that we consider approaching the department to see if that portion of the compound could be changed a little bit, that barbed wire removed. It's really, in my view, quite an eyesore, and it kind of says to me that we don't trust our community enough for people to come in from government and park without having to park behind barbed wire.
Okay. My comment on that is, I don't disagree with you, but our lease is only for one more year. I'd like to give it for one more year as is, and then see what they do, whether we can release it or whatever, and then approach them at that time. But I certainly don't disagree with what you're stating. But I
It's
just-
brought a number of negative comments, for
But
sure.
I'm just, the 2-year lease was a very short term, and I wouldn't wanna see us jeopardize that lease.
Could-
That's just my opinion.
Could it be such that a new government might want to retract something the former government did in the interests of public?
They might retract the lease. I don't know. Don't know.
But if they really wanted, but if they wanted in there that bad, they just use wire cutters.
But I understand what Councilor Reyes is saying. It's the barbed wire on the top that looks like a prison complex. Like I don't disagree with that. They want a fence, it's their property, that's fine, but it doesn't look great, but, I mean, it's their property, and I'd like to see us get one more year under our belt. I think they're testing us to see what we would do with it, or if we'd make a mess, or if we would, jeopardize it, or if people be having parties there, or, I think they were testing us, but, we have a new government, but we don't have a new director. The same director's still there in tourism. So we're not dealing with a whole new government. We're still dealing with the same personnel. Just my thoughts, so I'll leave it at that.
Think some more on it then.
Okay? You had something?
I did, I had a couple other things. I just wondered if we've had any more movement towards the reciprocal agreement with Anglo West for use of the schools. I imagine you had your plate full, don't you?
But definitely in the new year.
Okay, perfect. And the only other one I had on my list was, seeing how we're moving into the cold weather and the possibility of power outages, have we moved any closer to acquiring the 2 heaters that we were gonna be using for warming houses in the event of emergency?
Based on the situations that happened in the last month or so, that hasn't even been a chat
Okay.
with anyone.
Do we know where the heaters are? Like, are they in inventory in Fredericton to purchase, or do they
I
have?
have no idea.
No. Was the fire department themselves gonna acquire those?
I'm not really sure. I don't think it was planned under their new equipment.
But there was a motion passed to purchase 2 2 more of these, right?
I don't know if the motion was passed to purchase, I'd have to recheck that, but it was supposed to be a conversation with the fire departments.
Okay.
So,
Maybe we better go ahead and check and see if it was a motion. I kinda thought it was, but I don't know.
I'm just concerned that as we get into weather that's unpredictable and the possibility of significant tree damage and power loss, we could be in a mess.
Okay. The spare one, where was that going to be?
I don't know the sterile,
Well, we ordered 2, right?
we didn't order any.
Oh, sorry, we talked about 2 more,
It was a conversation.
okay, and one was going to Keswick Ridge, I do believe.
That was supposed to be part of the conversation, yes.
Okay. So that conversation has to happen.
It should, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other new business?
I don't know if this is, speak, new business or not, but I got an inquiry in this week about those streetlights for Camerville and the Route 104 and is it 617, yeah. When they were going to be going up.
That's the one down by the school, 617?
Yeah, and the other one's a Camerville that goes on to the 104.
They were approved, weren't they?
They were, and submitted, so it's in their hands.